There's a small group of NBA players you almost never expect to hear mentioned in trade conversations. We're not talking about dependable starters or quality role players. We're talking about franchise-level stars, players in their prime, current Finals MVPs, and guys who have already led a championship team. That's why what Shams Charania reported immediately grabbed my attention. He discussed the possibility of one of those rare players becoming available and then connected that name to the Los Angeles Lakers. If you're a Lakers fan, this is the kind of scenario that's impossible to ignore, because it could give Luka Doncic the elite two-way running mate every contender wants. According to Shams, league sources say the Lakers have genuine interest in pursuing a blockbuster deal for Boston Celtics' Jaylen Brown. Brown is a perennial all-star, the reigning Finals MVP, and one of the NBA's premier two-way wings, making him a natural fit alongside Luka in Los Angeles. When you stop and think about both Brown's situation and the type of teammate Luka thrives with, it's easy to understand why this idea has generated so much attention. We'll get into the financial side and what a trade would actually cost, because those questions matter. But first, it's worth understanding how a player of Brown's caliber could even become available. For years, Jaylen Brown has been one of the cornerstones of the Celtics alongside Boston's other star, and after winning Finals MVP, the organization rewarded him as a franchise centerpiece. Then, this offseason changed everything when another superstar entered the market. Reports indicated that Boston was willing to make Brown the centerpiece of a package in an attempt to acquire that player. The deal never happened because the other star landed somewhere else, but the important part is what came after. Once a front office signals it's open to discussing a player of Brown's status, every team around the league takes notice. Now, reports indicate the Celtics are engaged in trade conversations involving Brown with multiple interested teams. That means a proven Finals MVP, someone who has already shown he can lead on the biggest stage, is legitimately being discussed in trade scenarios. This isn't just random speculation. It's a rare opportunity where one of the league's top stars appears to be genuinely available. And that's exactly why Lakers fans should be paying close attention. Jaylen Brown isn't simply a talented starter or another complementary piece. He's one of the NBA's best two-way wings, a multiple-time All-Star, an All-NBA player, an NBA champion, and the Finals MVP from the league's most recent title run. Most importantly, he's already demonstrated on basketball's biggest stage that he can be the best player in an NBA Finals series and help lead a team to a championship. Jaylen Brown brings just about everything contenders look for in a franchise wing. He can attack the basket, score from the perimeter, and take control of an offense when the game is on the line. On the other end, he's a physical, switchable defender capable of matching up with multiple positions and taking on the toughest assignments. Add in his athleticism, toughness, playoff experience, and the fact that he's still in his prime, it's easy to understand why every championship-caliber team would at least make the call if he became available. Before we get into why he fits so well next to Luka Doncic, it's worth remembering just how rare Brown's resume really is.
Winning Finals MVP isn't an award many players ever touch. It means that with a championship on the line, you were recognized as the best performer on the biggest stage the sport has to offer. Jaylen Brown didn't simply help Boston win a title. He earned Finals MVP because of what he delivered throughout the championship series when the pressure was at its highest. That kind of proven playoff performance is one of the hardest qualities to find in the NBA. You can't develop it overnight, and teams almost never let players with that resume hit the trade market. That's exactly why this situation has drawn so much attention, especially for a franchise like the Lakers that measures success by championships. Now, let's look at why Brown's game makes so much sense alongside Luka. Luka is already one of the most dominant offensive creators basketball has ever seen, but building the right roster around him requires very specific pieces. The first priority is adding elite perimeter defenders who can handle the toughest matchups, allowing Luka to avoid being targeted throughout a playoff series. The second is finding another player who can consistently create offense on his own instead of relying on Luka to generate every scoring opportunity. That's where Jaylen Brown checks both boxes. He's one of the league's premier perimeter defenders, giving the Lakers someone capable of guarding the opposing team's top wing while easing Luka's defensive burden. At the same time, Brown is an accomplished scorer who can create his own shot and keep an offense running when Luka is resting or facing constant defensive pressure. So this isn't simply about pairing Luka with another star. It's about adding a player whose strengths directly address Luka's biggest needs. Elite defense, self-created offense, and proven championship experience all come together in one all-star wing still in his prime. Picture Luka controlling the offense while Brown locks down the other team's best scorer before coming back down the floor and creating a clutch basket of his own. That's the type of combination that gives a team a legitimate championship foundation. The next question, of course, is whether a move like this is financially possible, because that's where the real challenge begins. Of course, a trade like this wouldn't come cheap. Jaylen Brown is on one of the largest contracts in the NBA, so the Lakers would have to match that salary while also putting together a package that likely includes key players and valuable draft picks. There's no way around it. This would be a massive deal, capable of reshaping the franchise. At the same time, the Lakers have never been afraid to make aggressive moves when an elite talent becomes available. If the opportunity is to pair another superstar with Luka Doncic while he's in his prime, that's exactly the type of swing this organization has built its reputation on. The financial hurdles are significant, but players with Brown's resume rarely become attainable. Now, think about what this pairing could look like in a playoff series. Luka is going to produce offensively regardless of the defensive coverage because he's one of the most dominant offensive creators basketball has ever seen. The real challenge comes when opponents throw multiple defenders at him and force someone else to carry the offense. That's where Jaylen Brown changes the equation. If defenses overload on Luka, Brown has already shown he can create his own offense and take over stretches of a game as a Finals MVP caliber scorer.
On the defensive side, he can take the toughest perimeter assignment, giving the Lakers someone capable of guarding the opposing team's best scorer in the biggest moments. That combination gives you one superstar driving an elite offense and another who can deliver on both ends of the floor when the pressure is highest. That's the blueprint many championship teams have followed throughout the modern NBA. Brown also thrives without the ball, whether it's cutting to the rim or finishing plays, which makes his game a natural complement to Luka's playmaking instead of creating unnecessary overlap. That said, there are legitimate concerns that deserve attention. The biggest one is the price. Acquiring a player of Brown's caliber would almost certainly require the Lakers to part with meaningful contributors and valuable draft assets, potentially reducing the team's overall depth. That's a fair concern, but when you have a generational player like Luka in his prime, teams often decide it's worth sacrificing depth to secure another elite cornerstone. Role players are generally easier to find than a proven Finals MVP who is still in his prime. Another question is the financial commitment. Brown's contract would be a major long-term investment, and that's something every front office has to weigh carefully. But if the Lakers believe they're firmly in championship mode with Luka, the bigger issue becomes whether Brown significantly improves their title chances. Given his resume as an elite two-way player and Finals MVP, many would argue he does. The final debate centers on fit. Both Luka and Brown are high-level scorers who need opportunities with the ball, so it's reasonable to wonder how those responsibilities would be divided. Even so, Brown has consistently shown he can be effective away from the ball, taking advantage of open looks and scoring opportunities created by teammates. More importantly, his defensive versatility addresses one of the biggest weaknesses on a Luka-led team. When two stars complement each other's strengths instead of duplicating them, that's often the foundation of a legitimate championship contender. And that's exactly why this potential move carries so much significance for what the Lakers are trying to accomplish. Before you even get into the trade itself, you have to remember how the Lakers define success. For this franchise, a good regular season isn't enough, and simply making the playoffs doesn't move the needle. The standard has always been championships. When you have a generational talent like Luka Doncic in the middle of his prime, the responsibility is to build the strongest title contender possible around him. That challenge becomes even tougher in the Western Conference, where every playoff round is loaded with elite teams and high-level wings. You can't expect one superstar to carry that path by himself. you need another player who can create offense in the biggest moments while also taking on difficult defensive assignments. Jaylen Brown happens to offer both. If a player with Brown's resume is genuinely available, passing on that opportunity would be difficult for a franchise with the Lakers' championship expectations. So here's why this idea is so intriguing. Brown fills two of Luka's biggest needs at once by bringing elite perimeter defense and the ability to create his own offense without relying on someone else. Picture Luka controlling the game offensively while Brown handles the toughest defensive matchup and delivers key baskets late when defenses focus on Luka.
Of course, whether a deal actually happens depends on the asking price, the assets involved, and whether both sides believe the fit is worth it. Those are the real questions. But purely from a basketball perspective, it's hard to ignore how naturally their skill sets complement each other. The potential reward isn't just another playoff appearance, it's building a legitimate championship contender. And if there's one thing the Lakers have consistently shown over the years, it's that they aren't afraid to chase superstar talent when the opportunity presents itself. The part that stands out most is how rarely a situation like this even develops. Teams almost never move elite two-way stars who perfectly fit around another franchise player. Usually those players are viewed as untouchable, but sometimes an unexpected chain of events changes everything, and a pursuit of another superstar suddenly puts a Finals MVP into trade discussions. That's why Jaylen Brown's situation has become such a major storyline. For a Lakers team built around Luka, Brown checks nearly every box by providing elite wing defense and dependable secondary shot creation. When a player of that caliber appears to fit your roster this well and may actually be obtainable, it's the type of opportunity every front office has to seriously explore. In the simplest terms, that's what makes this story so compelling. You have Luka Doncic, one of the NBA's premier offensive engines, needing defensive help on the perimeter, and another player who can consistently generate offense. You have Jaylen Brown, a Finals MVP still in the middle of his prime, who brings both of those qualities at an elite level. And because of an unexpected series of events around the league, there may finally be a legitimate chance to acquire him. The financial hurdles and trade package would be significant, but the basketball fit is about as clean as you could hope for. If the goal is chasing another championship, this is exactly the kind of bold move the Lakers have built their reputation on making whenever the opportunity is there. I'm not saying this trade is already done, and I'm definitely not claiming a deal is waiting to be announced. There's been no confirmation that everything is finalized, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. The reason you watch these videos is because I stick to what's actually being reported, even when that means admitting there are real questions about the price, the salary, and whether the deal can realistically come together. Those concerns shouldn't be ignored, because this would be one of the biggest and most complicated trades of the offseason. At the same time, the talent is undeniable. Jaylen Brown is a proven Finals MVP still in the middle of his prime, and from a basketball standpoint, his game fits remarkably well next to Luka Doncic. That's why this report immediately stood out. Shams Charania publicly connected the Lakers to Brown on national television, putting Los Angeles directly into the conversation. When you combine Brown's resume, the way his skill set complements Luka, and the possibility that he could actually be available, it's easy to understand why so many people are paying attention. This feels like one of those opportunities that simply makes basketball sense. Now it's just a matter of seeing whether the Lakers decide the cost is worth it. Keep an eye on the next few weeks, because once a player of this caliber is legitimately in trade discussions, situations can change very quickly. If something does happen, this could end up being remembered as the moment the Lakers found the ideal championship partner for Luka. Now I want to hear from you.
If you're running the Lakers, do you make the aggressive move and trade for a Finals MVP to pair with Luka, or do you decide the draft picks, salary commitment, and overall cost are simply too much and look for another option? Drop your thoughts below, because these are the franchise-changing decisions that separate teams chasing championships from teams that are only trying to stay competitive.